I've always believed that with fear, when you love something or somebody so much, you have to experience fear unless you have a lot of faith. And I think the only cure for the fear, like, if you love your kids, you don't want them to get hurt. Or if you love your wife, you don't want her to get hurt. You don't want her to leave. You don't want her to die. You don't want all this. You love so much that you're afraid. And the only way to get rid of that fear is to trust in something else, that something else is going to, take care of it, that those things aren't going to happen. And if they do, they're simply planned.
If you've listened to the Hope Strategy podcast for a while, or if you're new around here, there's a good chance you've heard us mention MWI, which is Josh and I's digital marketing agency. None of the Hope Strategy podcasts would be possible without MWI. And I would like to offer a free 20-minute consultation to anybody that listens to the podcast that's looking for some digital marketing help. Just go to mwi.com/hope strategy and sign up, and we'll reach out to you, and you will get a free 20-minute consultation with yours truly to talk about your digital marketing needs, to talk about your website, whatever questions you have. I'm happy to answer them. Thank you so much for listening to the Hope Strategy podcast. Please reach out. I'd love to help you with your marketing. Welcome to another edition of the Hope Strategy podcast. We just had a fantastic conversation, but before I even get to that, we have a very special guest on the podcast today. For longtime listener, first time caller, Curtis Kildu, who is the first and foremost a buddy of mine since 7th, 8th grade, but now is the co-CEO at MWI, the agency you hear us reference all the time. He runs the show over there with me. Curtis, welcome to the podcast, man. I can't believe it took this long to have you on.
This was an incredible interview to come in on for my first real podcast.
Yeah,
so it was. Appreciate the invite.
The funny thing is, I don't know his last name now that I'm thinking about it, and it's not really. Is it Haas or I don't know what it is, but his name is Gary King Pokemon. Is his handle on his? I think his handle on Instagram and stuff is just King Pokemon. But this guy is. I was so inspired by him. So you'll hear in the show, you'll hear in the episode about recently how I came across some old Pokemon cards and sold them for some money. And in my research, and Curtis was helping me do some research on this as we were looking into this random Pokemon deal that I did. But as a kid, I was big into Pokemon, and we were doing some research, and we come across the King Pokemon, the Pokemon King, and we're like, oh. I reached out to him, we talked, and at first it was just kind of the superficial high level. Like I reached out and said, hey, how much do you think this Pokemon card's worth? Thinking he wouldn't respond. He has 30-something thousand followers on Instagram. Super nicely, he responded, and we had a nice, genuine back and forth. And then I started doing more research on Gary, and I'm like, this guy is so kind and authentic and genuine and has a real passion and love for the hobby of collecting Pokemon cards. And he's a collector of a lot of other things as well. And so after hearing his story a little bit and realizing the depth to the Pokemon King as a human being, I was like, oh, I'm going to invite him to be on the podcast. He said yes. Curtis was involved in this whole thing and helped make the connection in the first place. So I said, dude, you want to jump on the podcast with me? And he did. And man, it was such an amazing conversation. What a cool guy. What'd you think, Curtis?
Yeah, I think this was incredible to get to know Gary King Pokemon. Because you see, he's been interviewed by a lot of YouTubers, and I think you were able to get another side to Gary to know and understand what drives his passion and what he's doing with Steve Aoki and bringing awareness to autism and the resources that they are able to provide for parents with children with autism.
To most of our listeners, this is probably so random to say, what are we talking about? Pokemon? But let me paint a picture for you and dangle a couple carrots in front of you as you get into the episode. The Pokemon industry is the number one selling franchise of all time. And I can't remember the exact terminology there, but like bigger than Star Wars, bigger than the Marvel universe, bigger than any of that stuff, right? And in the last year or two, the collectible side of it, which is mainly Pokemon cards, has really just gone nuts. Like it's the value of these Pokemon cards has continued to skyrocket for a lot of reasons, which we talk about. But Gary is a key player in this whole thing. He owns the most valuable collection of Pokemon cards, valued at more than $10 million. And he has sold individual cards alone themselves for $150,000 plus to guys like Logan Paul, who many of you have heard of as this big influencer on YouTube and stuff. And so he's part of this insane world that's so cool. And so again, on the surface, you would hear, man, big money, this guy's rich, but he is a genuine, humble, kind, awesome guy. He's 66 years old. He's lived an amazing life, had some incredible stories about trials and tribulations and overcoming things, and really some cool perspective on overcoming some serious trials in his life, and then recognizing hindsight doors that were opened up as a result of those trials. And we kind of tapped into that a little bit. So as we like to do on the podcast, I feel like we got a couple layers deeper than maybe you would normally hear if you were watching a Pokemon interview, and getting to know him was awesome. And we exchanged numbers at the end, and Curtis and I, next thing you know, we're going to be in Dallas at PokeCon in a few weeks. That's the plan as of right now. We'll got a couple of wives to get approval from, but there's a good chance we're in Dallas mid-March celebrating Pokemon and Curtis's birthday. So, and yeah, like Curtis said, he's been able to leverage a lot of this fame and growth that he's seen personally for the foundations that he is a huge part of. Steve Aoki, the world famous, I almost said magician. He's not a magician. He's a musician. The world famous musician, and him have partnered up on these incredible foundation, one for autism. We talked all about that, but then also for neurological health, which Steve Aoki is really passionate about. And so we talk about how you can get involved with that as well, and spread some hope through some of these foundations they're involved with. So really cool. I love doing this podcast because next thing, I just would have never had that opportunity to talk with him and learn from him. Like, we have so many incredible people. So thanks, Curtis, for sending me his Instagram handle in the first place and getting the thing started. But please listen and enjoy this awesome conversation with Gary, King Pokemon.
Something is happening in our world.
Time is very precious.
I'm gonna show you how great I am.
Hope in the face of difficulty.
More than machinery, we need humanity.
Hope in the face of uncertainty.
I'm better now than I was. I'm experienced now. Okay?
Changing the world can happen anywhere, and anyone can do it.
The audacity of hope.
This is the Hope Strategy Podcast with Corey Blake and Josh Steinley.
You were so kind to respond to my message on Instagram in the first place.
Oh, it's my pleasure. My pleasure too. I love doing things that support the hobby.
Yeah.
And I could see your you do a good job, and you're serious too. And I like helping young people do stuff, because it's basically all I do now. So I'm going to introduce Curtis to you. So Curtis is, we run a digital marketing agency, and we're co-CEOs at the agency. Normally on the podcast, my partner, another partner at our agency, who's the founder of the company, Josh, is my co-host, but he could care less about Pokemon and collections and everything. And anyway, he's in Boston, so it's midnight or whatever there. But Curtis is a fan of yours. He's actually the one. I had seen your stuff. I had seen your Pawn Stars episode, and I had seen your stuff before. But a couple weeks ago when I had, and we'll talk about this, but when I had that first edition German Charizard, Curtis and I were the ones kind of like hunting around. Can we sell this thing? Where can we go with it? Should I hold on to it? And Curtis is a big collector and stuff too, and he's all into this. So he's actually the one that sent me one of your links. I think it was a YouTube link or something, and I watched it, and then that's when I messaged you. So Curtis wanted to jump on too, and I wanted to have him involved on this episode. Curtis, you collect Pokemon too, huh?
I'm a fan. Yeah, absolutely.
He's getting into it. He's learning. He's not an OG Pokemon collector like I am from the day they came out, really back in the day. But
Sure.
I really want to say thank you. The background to anybody listening right now. So, you're going to hear all about Gary Pokemon King. He's the man. I really am super excited to learn more about you. As a 10 or 11-year-old kid, I started collecting Pokemon cards. The entrepreneur in me as a 10 or 11-year-old kid saw oh, when I open these packs of cards, some of these cards are more valuable than others, and people will buy them. I can buy a pack for $2.50 and I can sell some of these cards for more. So I started this little side hustle in my backyard and taking them to school. And I actually brought this because I figured you'd get a kick out of this. So these are empty now, and I'll tell you why. But you can see these old cases. You see how it has a $5, some masking tape with the $5 on it?
I do.
These are from back then. This one was $15. I think that was a Venusaur. Here's another $5 one. This is a $30 one. It was a Zapdos, but it was a Japanese Zapdos that I bought from a Japanese lady. So anyway, so I would get these cards and I would sell them. And then at the end of that little entrepreneurial endeavor as a kid, I put some of the best ones that I still had that I hadn't sold yet into a box, and I went on with my life. That was 25 years ago. Just a couple weeks ago, I went back into that box and pulled out some of these cards and realized that the Pokemon world has just blown up, and we'll talk all about this. But in the last couple of years, in the last year, and really, and then obviously the last few years, it's blown up. And I saw this first edition Glurak, which is Charizard in German in there.
Glurak, yeah, right.
Yeah, and I actually saw on Pawn Stars, when you were on Pawn Stars, you actually have, that was one of the cards they highlighted was the German first edition Charizard.
Yes, true.
I'm sure.
I ended up with a couple. And there's only a couple in the world, but I sold one to a fellow in Germany, I don't know, maybe 6, 7, 8 years ago, because he contacted me again just this week from years ago, asking me if I could find the PayPal transaction. I think it was 2012. If I could find the PayPal transaction, because he was putting together a story about that card.
Oh, really?
And how unusual it was for Gary to sell any of his collection, and yet I just thought that at the time it would be a good idea, and so that is interesting. The Glurak,
yeah,
sure.
The Glurak, yeah. So I saw that in there, and then I also had the base set. I had a Charizard, Venusaur, Venusaur, Blastoise that weren't first edition, but they were the base set, and so then and then a bunch of other ones. Anyways, I ended up selling. I told you this via message, but I ended up pulling these together, going to a bunch of stores and stuff. They were in pretty good condition, but none of them were graded. And you probably have some fast track to get something graded, but it's like 12, 15 weeks out right now. And it's
even where I have an order in right now that they received in May.
Oh my goodness. You need to call, you got to tell them the Pokemon King's calling. What are they doing?
I know. Well, it's funny, even a couple of celebrity friends, who they can't even get things done quicker.
Man, that's crazy.
Yeah, like Steve Aoki.
Yeah,
who's a neighbor and friend of mine. He he can get his name put on labels and all kinds of stuff, but he can't expedite these orders. It's just terrible.
One of the biggest musicians, DJs in the world. I was telling Curtis when we were walking around with these cards and we were doing some research, I'm like, there's got to be a business in here to expedite this process and like to start. That's going to happen, I guarantee, in the next 5 years. Somebody's going to create the new PSA that's going to be something else, and it's going to be like, send it today and you have it back by next week.
They do have different levels of submission, but there's got to be
an affordable way.
You got to pay a ton of money to do it. Maybe $500 for same day for one card. Things like that.
Yeah, we got to figure. That'll be a business we go into together, Gary. We'll figure out the quick way to get it done.
All you have to do is put me in charge of PSA, and I guarantee you this would not be happening.
Yeah, seriously. Anyway. So I didn't want to go through that headache, and I knew a guy that was collecting, and I had seen him posting some stuff. So I reached out and just went back and forth with him. Anyway, I ended up selling 15 cards, which for $13,000, which was great. I was tempted to hold on to him and stuff, but I was also like, the timing's right. I've got the right buyer in place based on my research. I think he got a good deal if he holds on to him for a long time, because there were some good cards in there, and that first edition is just going to keep going up. Right. Anyway, so I reached out, and again, I'm saying this story for the listeners, and I'm talking too much, but I reached out to Gary, and he was so kind and responded to my message on Instagram, and I just said, "What do you think this is worth?" And he said, "Doesn't look like it's in the best condition." And then I said, "Well, let me try to sell this a little more. It's actually," and I pulled it out and I took a picture. And he said, "Oh, that actually looks a little better." looks like a fun thing. Anyways, and then
so some of the damage was on the top loader.
Ton of it. I mean, that's these cases. These cases are 30 years old.
Right.
And so I went in and did some research and sold the card. And now, after a couple of messages, you were so kind to give us some of your time, and I can't wait to hear all about you and learn more after watching a ton of content and reading a bunch of stuff. I got a lot of questions, so I'm excited.
Well, I get that comment quite a bit, because I probably get between 100 and 200 messages a day. And I honestly try to get to everyone. Maybe I can't answer everyone, but I try to read everyone. And I get a lot of nice feedback that very few of the content creators in this field answer questions. Yeah. And so, I mean, it's not easy. It was a little bit easier a year ago when I only had maybe 10,000 followers. It was a little bit easier because not as many questions came in. Yeah. But now so many come in, and having a family and
having a life outside of these cards and these people all over the world. Yeah.
It's hard, but I do, like you noticed, I do try to, even if I can't always answer them, I do absolutely read every one.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. That means even more now knowing that you get that many messages, and I couldn't be more thrilled to be talking to you. So thanks so much. So it
turned into this.
Yeah, it turned into this.
That's right.
And now we've got a new business to take down PSA, and that's going to be coming out.
Actually, I'd rather take them over than take them down.
Over. Okay. Yes. We're not taking them down. We're gonna help expedite the process so that I can't. So you've had an order in since May. That's
they
coming up on a year.
Yeah, they received an order in May. It's
what's in it?
Good stuff. There's 18 good cards, maybe $1,000 cards, and then 7 first edition base starters that are 10 quality, PSA 10 quality. So it's a lot of money. And but I have about 5 or 6 orders in, but that's the oldest one. And it's very disheartening, to have to wait and wait and wait.
I figured when it said on the website 12 weeks, I figured that meant 25 weeks. I was like, let's double that number, because if it says 12 on the website, that probably hasn't been updated for a while.
Right. Well, no, everybody's waiting from May and June. Everybody for bulk orders. I put those in on bulk orders, and
man, that's crazy. From what I've heard, you have always had it in you to be a collector of sorts. You collected bottle caps and you collected baseball cards. So talk to me about, sounds like you said you grew up in the late 50s. You would go down the street to the neighbor's house to watch whatever show was on. There's a couple of shows on, right? There was 3 channels or 2 or 3 channels on TV. Tell me a little bit about your upbringing. Where was it, and what was your childhood like, and how did you get into this whole world? Did it start as a kid, or was that later in life?
Yeah, well, I was born and raised in Hollywood, in Los Angeles, California. And my mother was the personal secretary for a actress, a real popular actress at the time, Lucille Ball.
Whoa.
And I Love Lucy fame.
Yeah.
And so she was her personal secretary assistant. And so we lived near the studios, all the Desilu studios, where they did all the filming. And that I was basically brought up in the hallways of, Desilu studios.
Wow.
And the collecting side of it, I remember going to a gas station and a guy clicking off a bottle cap off of his soda on a machine, and the bottle cap falling and rolling down on the ground, and it fell, where the inside was up. And I saw one of my favorite football players from the Los Angeles Rams, his face. So I picked up that bottle cap. I must have been maybe 6, 7 years old. And I picked up that bottle cap, and I saw it was one of my favorite players' face inside the bottle cap. And so I went on a quest to get those bottle caps, and I would get a magnet, rubber banded to a pole, and stick it down where the bottle caps fall in the machine.
Yeah.
Down inside. And then I would pull up, all the metal bottle caps. Wow. And I would go all over. It was like all over town for a 6 or 7 year old, but probably around the block a few times looking for those machines. And from that moment on, I was hooked on collecting. and completing sets.
Okay, and we're going to get to that because you have unbelievable collections and unbelievable complete sets. I had no idea that your mom was the assistant to Lucille Ball. How did she get that job? How did that come to be?
To tell you the truth, I don't know how she got it. It was just always like that, you know.
Did she do that? Was she the personal assistant for other people? Was that how did she get into that?
No, it was just for her. I think it was something like she worked for Desilu Studios, and then as a secretary, and then got to know, you know, all the people there, and then she was recruited. In time, you know, to be her personal assistant. So
I assume you spent time. You knew Lucille Ball then.
Oh, yeah. Well, as much as you can as a little kid.
What was she like? What was she like? What memories do you have as Lucille Ball as a little kid?
She was not the most pleasant person. She wasn't like the doting mother type. I remember a couple times we had company picnics, and it's funny. I don't think I've ever discussed this before. We had company picnics, and at those picnics, she was so hard on the staff, you know, the people that were serving, you know, drinks and the people that were flipping the burgers. And I always thought, boy, she's kind of rude. So.
Well, she didn't come across that way on that show. So one of my best memories as a kid, when I was a little kid, my parents were getting divorced and I went and lived with my grandparents for a little while. And I spent a lot of time at my great grandpa's house. And every single day as like a 6 and 7 year old, same age you were when you were hanging out with in Lucille Ball's studio, I was sitting on his lap watching I Love Lucy every single day.
Oh, is that interesting?
He loved it. Yeah, it was his favorite show. So man, that's incredible.
Well, you know, it's funny, to this day, I still watch shows from the 50s and 60s, you know, on on those channels, the Decades channel. And my favorite was The Many Loves of Dobie Gillis.
I've never seen that.
No, well, it was with Dwayne Hickman and Bob Denver from Gilligan's Island. Before Gilligan's Island. And that was, and I hate to say it, but it's probably still my favorite show.
I've got it written down. I'm gonna have to look it up. I love Andy Griffith, Leave It to Beaver. It's fun to go back with my kids now that I have small kids, because you can't turn on the TV now and have the kids just sitting in front of the TV and then they don't even understand what it was like when I was a kid to like wait till Saturday morning to watch cartoons for 2 hours. And if you missed it, you missed it. Right.
Yes.
And they're like this Netflix and Hulu and Disney Plus and everything else. They can't wrap their minds around it. But it's nice to be every now and then we'll turn on like Andy Griffith and know I can leave the room and they'll just sit there and watch it. And it's all wholesome, good, you know, morals of stories and stuff instead of who knows what.
I love Don Knotts, you know, in the Andy Griffith show. I just loved him. He was like the Maynard G. Krebs on Dobie Gillis show that was played by Bob Denver. You know, from Gilligan's Island. He was like the secondary character that basically stole the show. Yeah, I always liked that type.
Yeah, he's so good on that.
Yeah.
So you grew up in Hollywood. That's fascinating. And then you moved eventually to Vegas, right? Because didn't you get into the casino industry? Weren't you managing casinos as a career? How did you get into that career? What was that transition like?
Yeah, well. Yeah, that it's actually, you got to go back just a little bit to know. Out of high school, I went to UCLA, which is also in Southern California, and I got my degree in biochemistry, and at the same time, my minor was in journalism, and I loved journalism, and I hated the sciences, but my parents. Back then, you know, they kind of they paid and dictated what you did.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And
if you're doing biochemistry and you don't like science, then that had to have been a fun couple of years.
Yeah. but it's what they told me to do. And I did it. You know, it's kind of how things were. But at least my minor was in journalism. I absolutely loved it. I wrote for the school newspaper, the Daily Bruin. I mean, I had assignments like at one that comes to mind at the UCLA morgue, where you would walk into the morgue and you would have these donated bodies hanging on meat hooks with tables around the perimeter of the room with half a heads and things like that all over. And I did an article on that for the Daily Bruin. I actually think I have that newspaper somewhere. And but I just loved, the journalism side of it. And then when I got out of school, I decided, and I was old enough then, that I just didn't want to, pursue, biochemistry. And so what I did was I opened a retail business, a video television store, which on Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood, which was the first, that's when the videotape came out in the 70s. And so there was a battle between VHS and Beta, different size video cassette, machines and tapes. Yeah. And so me and a partner did really, really well because, we just, the timing was right. We just struck it at the right time. Unfortunately, I got sick at that time and I got abdominal cancer. And what I had
as a young man, you were young at that point.
Oh yeah. I was just out of college.
Yeah. Wow.
And so, I mean, as silly as you have to understand, it was a really different time. You didn't talk about things. I didn't want my parents to know. It was just complicated. But I ended up coming to Las Vegas for my treatments, and so I was treated up here. And a friend of mine worked at the Sahara Hotel as a poker dealer, and so in my free time, I would go over there and play poker, and then they offered me a job. And anyway, that's how I got into the casino industry, and pretty quickly moved up from there. And I did a lot of jobs like that. I actually went on to work in Vietnam and, at a resort casino. But yeah, back then, that's how that happened, how I ended up in Vegas. And
well, that's interesting how life does that. How you never would have thought, you got your thriving new business right out of school, Sunset Boulevard, always been in Hollywood, and then boom, cancer, Vegas, and then a life that you never could have predicted otherwise, right?
Yeah, and something real fast, and this is going ahead a little bit. I after getting very established here in Las Vegas, I ended up going down to Bell Gardens, California, to run the Asian section of the Bicycle Club casino in Los Angeles. So I was back in Los Angeles. Okay. And that's in, this is what got me into Pokemon. This was like 1998. And I got cancer again while I was down there. I got malignant melanoma, very, very serious type. And so it was a serious illness, and I had to go on a leave of absence, and that was right before Pokemon came out, in the United States. And so
so this was like 94, 95.
Well, 96. Yeah, it was actually 1998 before the English came out.
Okay.
Because it came out in 99 here.
Yeah.
And I was in it on the tail end of the Japanese, because I had the time, because I was recovering and it wasn't working. And so because of the cancer again, that time, that got me, freed me up, let's say, and got me into Pokemon. So, so that's twice, two different cancers in Los Angeles, like what you were saying before, totally changed everything and changed my life. And both times it worked out very well.
So what would you say, having gone through that experience, which, people dread getting cancer once, you've done it twice. And so when you're up against something like that and you're facing, so real quick, the episode of our podcast that went live last week was with Dr. Benjamin Korn, who's like the chief oncologist of the Cancer Institute in Jerusalem.
Oh,
so he has studied over that. You should listen to the episode. It's really fascinating.
I will.
We're going to do a part 2 with him, because his whole thing is studying the science of hope and how he uses that as a cancer doctor, as an oncologist. And so he set out to cure pancreatic cancer because as a kid in Brooklyn, his dad died of pancreatic cancer.
That's a rough one.
And he told that we had the same conversation. He said it was a different time. It was the 70s, same time. And he said, my dad didn't tell us that he had cancer until a week before he died. We thought he told us he was on business trips.
Right.
And for 2 years, but really he was in Manhattan trying to get cured, and then called us.
That's what I did. That's exactly what I did. I didn't want to tell my parents.
Yeah.
And so I would sneak off to Nevada, to get my treatments until my appearance made it obvious there was something wrong. And then they caught on. Yeah,
it's a heartbreaking story to hear him tell it in that episode, because he had his dad in his mind as this like really well fit, healthy, fit guy. And again, as a kid, a 7 or 8 year old, he didn't know he thought he was on business trips this whole time. And then he goes and literally a couple of days before he passed away to see him, and he saw the frail man that he was. It's pretty fascinating.
And pancreatic cancer, that's one of those, the most serious.
Yeah.
In fact, I think I've heard that is you're more
I think so.
The recovery rate is just minuscule.
Yeah. I think you're right. Mm-hmm. So having faced that a couple different times, and then having the hindsight to be able to say, well, I got through that. And not only did I get through it, but both of those were pivotal moments in my life that changed the complete direction. And you've seen, whatever blessings or rewards or whatever you want to call it that have come. I mean, what's your perspective on that now? And what would you tell somebody that's facing some of these incredibly difficult circumstances? Yeah,
that's actually something I've never been asked before, but oddly, I can answer it very well. I must have thought about it at some point. The first time I got sick, I was a kid. I mean, I was 22, I guess, something like that. And I didn't feel hopeless at all. I didn't believe that, even though it could have been extremely serious, like most cancers, and this was no baby one. I never considered I wouldn't survive it. I mean, when you're younger, you're indestructible. You don't think anything's going to get you, and you have so many things, fun things going on around you, and I think the younger you are, the more support you have, to have your siblings close by and have your parents with you. I can't even say I had a lot of hope. I simply didn't feel hopeless at all.
Yeah.
So it's not like I felt a lot of pressure and stress in that, and I had to overcome it. For me, it was more a thing of not feeling that in the first place, the first time. That all changed, the second time I got sick in 1998.
Now, there was a lot more on the line the second time, right? Kids and family. And
yeah, it was totally different. I had a 7 and 8 year old boys, sons. They were born in 91 and 92. And, with my wife and that, and it's hard to really talk about it. It was very, very emotional. I remember sitting in the bathroom. Anytime I would get, I would feel, a pain, and because I didn't want to show the boys, I didn't want the boys to see that. I would go into the bathroom and close the door and sit in there, whether it was 10 minutes or 2 hours, I was sitting there until I was able to come out and be dad again, and because I didn't want them to see that. And I was extremely fearful, for what was going to happen, because I was, even though it was, basically skin cancer, it had gone all the way close to the bone. And once it gets into the lymph nodes, you're basically dead.
Yeah.
And mine was advanced. I had 8 surgeries. Maybe I'll tell you real fast how I found out. This is where the miracle started. I was living in Hacienda Heights, California. Again, I had been working at the bicycle club in Bell Gardens, California. And then I got laid off and got sick and got laid off. I was standing in line at a donut shop, an outdoor entrance to a donut shop. And a lady behind me tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Sir, I I was wearing shorts. Sir, have you had that mole checked on the back of your calf? And it might have been the size of a quarter, right? And I said, well, I've seen it before, but I don't really pay attention to it. She said, you should get yourself right to your doctor to check it out.
Wow.
Because apparently if a mole starts to change colors and shapes, from being a circle to changing to zigzag, which I never even noticed, then it could be turning. It could have turned to cancer. And I told her, no, I didn't really think much about it, but I did mention it to my wife. She did set up an appointment, but turned out this lady wasn't an oncologist. So she totally knew what she was talking about. My doctor referred me to an oncologist. And oddly enough, this lady worked in the same building, even though it was a different city. This lady who had discovered it in the first place, because I passed her in the hallway.
Oh, wow.
And I told her I was being checked out. She said, oh, good. I'm glad you did. Good luck in that. And anyway, it did turn out to be that. Well, 8 surgeries later, I kicked it. It was gone. And so, the hope side of it, I've always believed that with fear, when you love something or somebody so much, you have to experience fear unless you have a lot of faith. And I think the only cure for the fear, like, if you love your kids, you don't want them to get hurt. Or if you love your wife, you don't want her to get hurt. You don't want her to leave. You don't want her to die. You don't want all this. You love so much that you're afraid. And the only way to get rid of that fear is to trust in something else, that something else is going to help, take care of it, that those things aren't going to happen. And if they do, they're simply planned ahead of time. And so that's where my hope came in when I started to, gain more faith that something was happening beyond me. Because why was that lady behind me in that line at the donut shop? Why?
That's incredible.
Yeah. Why after 8 surgeries did I, were they able to get it all? And just too many things happened. And then, that's where my hope came in. My hope came in because the fear was conquered because of faith.
That is fascinating. I really appreciate you sharing that. And and it hits home for me I've got a 9-year-old son. I've got a 6-year-old son. And then I've got 2 little girls. And Curtis is expecting his first with his wife. They just got married and they're expecting their first boy here in a few months.
Good luck, Curtis. That's great.
Thank you, Gary. I have marriage questions that will be coming.
Absolutely.
So that's, and that is absolutely, the word miracle comes up a lot on the podcast. And that's from, like I said, people of all different faiths and creeds and races and religions and whatever. But that word miracle comes up quite often of these experiences that we have, which, shout out wherever. And if she's still around, to that oncologist that had the thought and that just to say, and, she may have, for whatever reason, thought, it's probably fine, or, that's kind of awkward. He'll figure it out on his own. But just to say that, and just the doors that open up to you for getting help.
I could almost guarantee you that, it was so progressed by then as it was.
You wouldn't have known, and you wouldn't, that
would have been the end of me. Absolutely. Yeah. Because, it was like a 1/4 inch from the lymph nodes. And it had traveled all the way from the outer skin, all the way through the muscle and everything near the bone. And I'm not a little boy. I have a little meat on me. So, it went a long ways. I don't think there's any question that had she not advised me and come out and said something, it didn't have to be anything.
Yep.
Had she not done that, I don't see something like that would have had to have happened for me to find out about it. I don't see that. So that was probably my last chance.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. And bless her for doing that. And the other thing that comes up a lot is this idea with hope that so closely tied to hope is faith. and what, in order to be able to have and that's the human condition, exactly how you put it, right? Like if you don't believe there's something, I don't care what it is, but something that's getting you out of bed in the morning to, there's some method to this madness,
right?
Hope and faith kind of go hand in hand to kind of figure that whole thing out, right?
And also for you just to be able to deal with the difficult situation of being near death and having little ones running around, right? I mean, just having that, going on around you, the effect it's going to have on you, there's got to be something else to get you through that, because that's a tough, hill to climb, believe me.
Yeah. The interesting thing is, so I want to go back to this thing. So when you were a kid and you find the bottle cap, well, we'll kind of pivot here a little bit, and you start creating the mechanism to reach back into the machine and pull out the bottle caps. And then, like you said, you start going through this process of wanting to collect to get your favorite athlete on the bottle cap, and then wanting to get the entire set. For anybody listening that doesn't understand, which a lot of our listeners probably don't understand this Pokemon phenomenon, right? Like Gary, his collection, and I'll say it because you've said it on other things, but I mean, it is valued at $10 million plus just the Pokemon collection of cards and memorabilia and other stuff. But these cards, it's not like, like some little thing. It's a big deal. And there is a huge following for this. And it's interesting to see this idea of collecting and this draw that you had to be a collector at this young age, and how it's, I mean, if anybody's created an incredible collection in the world, it's you. Yeah. What is the psychology to this for you? Like, what draws you to this? I got to get the whole thing. I mean, and I've watched, so another thing real quick, and we'll get to this. I watched the video where you were sitting with Logan Paul, this influencer who's everybody has heard of, this YouTuber and Twitter and Instagram. He's everywhere. I watched the video where he opened a briefcase of $150,000 to give you for a first edition Perfect 10 Charizard.
Yeah.
And you had a hard time letting that go in that situation. And you explained the reason you did, but there is a very clear connection and psychological, mental attraction, whatever the word is. I'm trying to figure this out, which is incredible to me. And I wonder how you look at that and how you've seen that evolve over time, and what your thought process is on that.
Well, it's funny because all the way from, Pokemon took a little bit of a downturn in like 2002, 2003, 2004. And I know we're skipping a lot, but for me, and for a very good friend of mine, Eddie Brenneschultz in New York, him and I were basically responsible for keeping the hobby alive. We would sit up for hours on the phone talking about what can we do, what can we do to push the hobby further? What can we do with PSA? Back then, if you typed in PSA Pokemon, you might have got 20 hits on eBay, where now you get over 1 million hits, right? Yeah. But anyway, we thought, well, we got to build up the collectible side, which was neglected by them, by the Pokemon company after Wizards of the Coast, got out.
Yeah.
And like they stopped doing first editions, which is kind of a collector's thing. I was just trying so hard to keep it going because I just enjoyed it so much. And that's going all the way through, to like 2016. Finally, Pokemon Go came out. They got a little innovative, and that added to the popularity of the collectibles.
It was a whole new generation of Pokemon lovers came from that. That was insane. I think Curtis was with me. We have an office in Hong Kong, and we were in Hong Kong like right around that time. And it was, it was crazy in the States too, but in Hong Kong, there was literally lines everywhere and people just doing Pokemon Go all over Hong Kong. It was fascinating.
Right. Well,
we were also part of that. Got to catch them all.
Yeah, we were hunting.
Right, I bet. Yeah, I actually saw a lot of pictures from Asia, where, showing, some in the middle of intersections, groups of people trying to, catch a character. And
yeah, it became a safety concern in a lot of places.
Right. But it was so big, like we all know, that couple months after its release, that's when the Pawn Stars producers got a hold of me, and they said they wanted to do a Pokemon segment, mainly because of the popularity of Pokemon Go, how that got into the mainstream.
Yeah.
And they wanted me to, I had the Charizard listing on eBay just as a horse and pony show, just to show it off, not to sell. And so I thought, well, this will be good for the hobby too, because Pawn Stars is really popular, and especially with collectors and people of that mindset. And so I said, sure. And at the time, for those interested, I was never planning on selling them. It was just another one of my things. I'm trying to promote the hobby and, get it to the forefront as much as possible.
And if they're calling you ahead of time, I mean, and again, people who watch that show, obviously, they make it seem like, oh, I just wandered in and, hey, look, this guy's got Pokemon cards. They knew, they had done their research, and he knows that he's going to kind of play dumb a little bit. Like, I don't know, Pokemon, he's kind of doing that in the whole thing and stuff.
Right.
And you get it, but that's huge of you. That's awesome that you knew, like, look, this is going to be huge publicity for the hobby itself, which I've been dedicated 20 years to at this point. Let's keep this thing going. That's awesome.
And the negotiation is real on Pawn Stars. In other words, there's it's set up as far as the appearance, but the negotiation was real. You going into that room, was there any specific number that you would have actually done? I mean, because you said in the Pawn Stars, I think it's valued at $500,000. The guy comes in, he says, "Holy cow!" And he says 380 to 390. Right.
And then I can't think. What's the guy's name on Pawn Stars? What's the main guy?
Rick Harrelson.
Rick. So Rick doesn't even make an offer. He's like, I don't know. I don't get it. I don't know.
Right.
Chun-Li's like, are you kidding me? You're going to leave this on the table. But I mean, was there a number? Because I know you kind of weren't planning on it, but if he would have come out with, a big number at that point, would you have sold it at all? Or was it just like not a chance?
Yeah, that would have been an awkward situation.
Yeah.
That would have been because 500,000 was well over retail for the time. Yeah. For the time.
Keywords. Yeah.
Now the expert said 380 to 390. Maybe that's pretty close.
Yeah.
So I set it at 500,000, knowing he wouldn't pay 500,000.
Yeah.
He's no dummy. And so had he said, okay, and I had an out, because I wouldn't have taken less than that. Right.
Yeah.
I would have said, if he would have said, okay, I'll give you 380, I would have said, I'm not going to do it. I want 500 flat. And that's it. Had he said, okay,
500.
I'll do the 500,000, which would have meant he saw something I didn't see. That would have been very awkward.
Yeah.
I would have had to find a way to get out of it without looking like a dummy.
Yeah.
But
have you talked to Rick since then? Have you sent him a text recently, or?
No, but I have talked to Chumley, because we all live in the same town here, and but that's why I always thought they should do a follow-up.
Yeah,
mainly because that episode of Pawn Stars is their second most viewed ever.
It's huge.
And there's like 2,000. Yeah, there's 2,000 segments, and that's number 2. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, it really is.
And so I thought maybe I could get them to do a follow-up. And, like here it is 5 years later. And, and I still have basically all the, pretty much all the cards, most of them.
That 5-minute segment has 12 million views on YouTube.
Right. The second most on History Channel ever.
Yeah.
Plus all the original views from the TV show and how many times.
And all the reruns. I've seen it as a rerun since.
Right. Every time it's on a rerun, I get like plastered with questions, saying, "Oh, we saw, your episode was on in the Netherlands or in New Zealand," or, I get that all the time.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. But I would have had to find a way out of it, honestly. But I wish they would do a follow-up, because it'd be good for the hobby. Not that the hobby needs anything right now, so big.
You've got some big hype men out there right now.
Right. I know.
If they called you in again, Gary, what would you take in?
Well, that would be the fun thing.
Yeah, that would
because I would go in there with that same briefcase, And I would put it down and I would say $15 million now. I mean, I would be so happy for that to happen. Right. And actually it would be a smart strategy for them to do.
Yeah, they really should.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Anybody's listening over there, get Gary back on. That would be
right.
It would be a cool follow. And I think they do those follow-ups sometimes. Like they'll kind of get back in touch with somebody that they bought something or that they did.
Yes. Or they have a guy that will be in there multiple times with different things. And I think it's a real.
Maybe they don't want to do it for the ego because they'll say we should have done the 500.
Oh, I wonder.
We should have at least thrown out 500.
And now we're gonna look stupid.
yeah, seriously. They could have. So going back real quick, I want to go back. So
yes,
because I missed this before. You had mentioned, and this is pivotal for this whole story, but you had mentioned that getting that second cancer diagnosis opened up and freed up the time for you to be able to start. Or you heard about, and I'll start the story and then you can tell us a little bit, but you had seen something on the news about this cartoon in Japan that was giving kids seizures. And you were like, what? Well, that's kind of crazy. What's this all about? So you started looking into it and then you started getting the collectibles because you saw something in it from Japan. And then you were first to know they were coming to the States and you were in it, but it was all because of this hiatus because of the cancer diagnosis, and then it also gave you something to do with your kids, right? So walk me through that, how you got into this whole thing.
Yes, I would say it was mainly that episode. Yeah, the effect that episode had.
I remember hearing that in the news too before it was. I remember that was
there.
A
You
big deal.
Go. Yes, and so when the English was finally released, I guess it was January of 1999. Like my boys, just like every other, kid in the world, got into Pokemon, and they were already playing the Game Boy games, and they were already watching the cartoons on TV, with the first with subtitles and secondly with different voice actors. And it gave me something in common with them. It gave me something to do with them because I loved the collectible side of it. And I taught them how to protect their cards and all that. And they loved every other side of it.
I'm still working on the because I went with the kids like last weekend and we bought a pack of cards and they don't understand. Like I'm so OCD about like, hey, careful when you open that. Hey, come on, get it in the case. And they're just like ripping it open and like 6-year-olds just like, whoa, I got this cool thing. And I'm like, oh, that's a holographic.
And you're wait.
I'm trying.
I was just like that. Because remember, I collected my whole life and I know what condition means.
Yeah.
And but sometimes I had to back off just a little bit and Yeah, my son got one like a Raichu break or something. That's like a pretty good card. And I've looked it up, and not huge or anything. But he's 6 and he pulls it out and he's like, "Dad, this one looks awesome." I'm like, what? And he's just like flailing it. I'm like, like let's put it in a case and let's look at it through the case, like trying not to ruin the fun, right? But
also like, hey, hold on to this, and then when in 15 years or 20 years, like I did, you'll be able to sell it for some money.
There you go. That's right. Yes.
So you start collecting with your kids and stuff, and you were traveling out of state to find cards, right? You were going all over to get these things.
Me and my wife would get up almost every morning and drive all over California looking for packs, and I was driving to Utah and Nevada and Arizona, and Northern California, wherever I could to find cards. And because then we would have so much fun. I'd be building my sets. The boys would be building their sets. And then at the time there was something called Yahoo auctions in the United States, which went away many years ago. They still have it in Japan, but through Yahoo auctions. So I started getting so many duplicates, especially of Polyrath and Zapdos, that I would put them on Yahoo. Now, eBay was going at the time, too. I did a little bit of eBay, but a lot of Yahoo auctions. And so I would start selling my spares, selling my extras, and actually making pretty good money doing it. And being unemployed at the time, because of my health situation, it was actually pretty lucrative, because most parents didn't have the time to do what myself and my wife were doing, trying to find cards. Driving all over the place to get cards. And so they wouldn't be able to, but they would pay a premium on the auctions. And it was fun. The boys were involved in that. We, at the time, there was no PayPal or any payments like that. And so, me and the boys would go out to the mailbox each day, open it up. There'd be 20, 30 white envelopes, with a $10 bill or a $20 bill inside. And we'd bring them inside, open them, and fill the orders. And I mean, it was just a fun thing for us to do together. And I without that, I don't think we I would have pursued it, but it was so much fun with them.
What have your boys gone on to do?
Okay, one of them is like a gamer. That's his enjoyment. And the other one likes to do video editing. I know he's never here to help me with this stuff.
Yeah,
but but he likes video. He's on Instagram. He's Prince Pokemon.
Okay.
So he loves Pokemon still, and he does stuff. He does stuff. With Pokemon, and
so how has your life changed since that Pawn Stars episode? That was in what was that 2018?
That was 2016.
Okay, 2016.
The second part of the year.
So what has happened in the last 4.5, I guess, years since that happened? How did that really change? Because you went from being a collector that maybe if people really knew the industry, they would have known who you were, or this guy in Vegas collects and he's got all these cards or whatever. I sold this guy this card for some money, but obviously that has changed dramatically to where now you yourself are famous in the Pokemon world as the Pokemon King. Right. And so how has that evolved? How has that changed your life?
Okay. Well, in, what a lot of people don't realize, prior to 2016, I was very well known in the community. Like you said, everybody
were there
knew
trade
me.
shows and stuff, and you'd kind of go.
There were trade shows, card shops that would ask me to do appearance. Nothing like today, but conventions and card shops, and because the people just seemed to know me, but that sent it to a different level. Suddenly people outside the hobby, the kids' parents would be on, watching Pawn Stars and would see this guy come in with, $500,000 in Pokemon cards. And they would say, wait a second. My kids, have Pokemon cards. I had Pokemon cards when I was younger, and they pull out their old binders and they start looking them up. And
so many people, since I've told that story the last few weeks of selling those cards, everybody's like, I got to go find my cards. They're somewhere in my parents' storage,
Right. Yeah. But that Pawn Stars episode really made that prevalent, because, now we're talking serious money.
I'm pretty sure that was probably the first time after I saw that episode. That was probably the first time that I went back and thought, I should look at those again. After seeing that episode, that changed the game for people that had those cards.
Yes, and probably the best thing about it was those same parents, because there were a lot of women too, but primarily men. Those parents would actually enjoy interacting with their kids with Pokemon, because they had an interest in Pokemon previously. Yeah. And then the kids do today, and now they have fun with it together. It was a little bit different when I started because there was no Pokemon, and yet the kids, enjoyed it, but I wanted to participate, with them. So
you've now gone on to, it seems like the last year of things has been really blown up, because so for those of you that don't know, that are listening, just collectibles in general have really, in the entrepreneurial community, with some very successful entrepreneurs, whether it's Gary V, again, some of these influencers like Logan Paul and others, and then Steve Aoki, who's a really, who you're good friends with and do a lot of stuff with. We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
it's just gotten a lot on social media. It's gotten a lot of buzz and a lot of hype. And so it's really, and so, like I said, I mean, I think Logan Paul, what's today? The 18th, I think on the 22nd, he's doing this big unboxing, this big live event.
27th.
The 27th. And what is it? It's like he has some starter first edition.
Yeah, it's actually, it's February 27th, which is the 25th anniversary day of Pokemon.
Yeah.
Logan is so smart. Him and his people, they are sharp as a tack, and they just cover all the bases and they do everything right. Plus, he's an absolute gentleman. I mean, we had so much fun. He is totally legit. Good guy. It's on the 27th, and what he's doing is he is opening up the original first edition base box.
And does he have one left or two left or three? He has a couple.
He has six. He has six of them.
How much money has he spent on those?
$2 million. He spent $2 million on those 6 boxes.
Oh,
and he's opening one of those 6 boxes on the 27th. But he's already sold the packs, and then he opens them on his channel, and the people get shout outs that are pretty valuable on when you're dealing with Logan.
Videos. Yeah, that's insane.
With 20 million followers and that. But they're paying upwards $30,000-$40,000 a pack.
Oh my God.
Which is well over market. That adds up to $1.4 million for one box, of which he paid $350,000 for. So
he's turning a profit on this whole thing.
Yeah.
Not to mention the revenue he's going to get from YouTube and from everything else.
That's what I mean. They're brilliant.
Smart guy.
And absolutely.
That's good to hear too, and not that it matters, but that's good to hear from you who had him in your home and worked with him and have communicated with him, to hear that he's a stand-up guy, that he's coming in, that he's respectful, all this stuff, because he's had his ups and downs in the media and stuff, so it's that's good to hear.
He's totally legit. It's just not all business. He loves Pokemon. I mean, he has a Squirtle tattoo on his thigh, right? Squirtle, right?
Yeah.
If you were going to pick one, you might pick a Charizard or a Dragonite, but he has a little Squirtle right on his thigh. But he does love Pokemon, and we talk pretty often. We text each other, and always have something to talk about, it seems. And I mean, he's legit. He's only 25. So when he had problems, with some of his, content, I mean, he was just a kid.
Yeah.
None of us want to be judged by our worst day. Right?
Oh, for sure. But I mean, even like the boxing stuff, like he's doing, he's just like, he's a hustler. He has done some incredible stuff. His little brother's doing a bunch of crazy stuff too. I mean, they're
well, the little brother's a different story. Yeah. Him, I don't have the same praise as I do for Logan.
Yeah.
Because number one, I don't know him as well, but he's really crazy.
Yeah.
But Logan, it's partly business. He is a businessman, but I mean, he's 25, and I'm so impressed by young people, that work hard towards goals and achieve things. I stand up and applaud, all young people that do something like that. So, I mean, I'm not judgmental at all, within the law. So,
So anyway, I again, if you're listening, because people don't understand, again, he spent for 6 boxes of cards that he's going to open. He spent $2 million. And so he himself, in one of his videos I was watching, he talks about how he has created this inflation where he's like, oh man, I went out and bought these boxes for so much that now I have to buy them for that much or even more, because now people know it's, so it's like in the last year, it's really gone up. I mean, you've seen the value of these cards that you've held on to for all this time just skyrocket, right? Like it's just like gone through the roof.
And he is probably the main reason they skyrocketed.
Yeah.
They were going to go up anyway with the anniversary coming up and everything, but he's one of the reasons they super skyrocketed.
Have you gotten any of those, the packs from McDonald's?
Okay, I've gotten 2. I
have 2 as well. Which ones do you have?
I did pull a Pikachu, a non-hollow Pikachu.
Okay, I haven't opened them. I left him. I haven't opened. I left him in the the thing they came in, you know, like the
the
paper
little envelope.
fold. I'm debating on, do I open them or do I just keep them in there and throw them in the box and sell them in 20 years?
I would just keep them in there. I bought my daughter, who's autistic. She goes to therapy. I take her to therapy, 12 therapy sessions a week. That's one of the things I'm so busy with. And one of her therapies, her speech therapy, they do feeding, you know, to help her feed herself and stuff like that. And so one day last week, my wife forgot to, well, I think she said she told me, so I probably forgot, you know, not to feed her after one place therapy session, because they're going to start the feeding at the second therapy place. And so I did feed her. I forgot. And I took her to her therapy. They said, well, where's the food? So I had to go get her food. So I drove to a McDonald's and to order a Happy Meal. And when they gave me the Happy Meal, it was a Pikachu box. And so I went back and I gave the food and I had the pack. And so I opened the pack and there was just a Pikachu, which is a good pull, second best pull or something. And then the second one I got was today. Again, I was between therapy sessions with my daughter in the car, and she wanted McDonald's. So I went to McDonald's and we got a second box. Now,
do you know what number they were? Because there was like 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Did you see on the? It doesn't matter, but
you know, I only found that out tonight, that there was actually a difference between that. I have the one box here, you know, but I didn't look. I didn't look to see that. Why? Will that pretty much tell you what's inside? Or?
I don't know. That's what I was wondering. I haven't opened them. I think I got a 1 and a 3 or something like that. I went with my boys and I took them and I said, let's just leave these in the box. And it was killing them, but I'm like, let's just leave them. So I'm going to wait and see, because I know it's been a big rush till I get them. And it's, you know, it's probably they're a McDonald's Happy Meal, right? For $3 or whatever. Like,
right. Well, you know, it's kind of a funny story that I did open up that first pack. The one today, I didn't. I still have the pack. But I opened it up. There was a Pikachu. And so my wife, on her Instagram, she's Autism Instruct on Instagram.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah. And she put up a picture of her holding that Pikachu from the McDonald's and took a picture for the Instagram.
Yeah.
And she has like 4,200 views. And then I opened up, or I didn't open up, but I took a picture of me with a 1997 Pikachu trophy, 4 in the world. You know, it's worth $200,000 or something. And I didn't get that many views.
Yeah, I saw you post that.
Yeah, her with that little cheap McDonald's Pikachu out pulled me, which is really amazing, because I have, you know, tens of thousands of followers.
You've got
and she 35,000 actually.
Oh, 35.
And she has 7,000. And she still got more because hilarious. Of that McDonald's Pikachu. Oh man, so funny.
Maybe that'll be the thing we do. We'll do a McDonald's Happy Meal poll, and we'll see.
Right,
that'll get more views than anything else you've ever done.
Yes,
it is. You know, it is kind of crazy to think. Like, obviously, it's the anniversary and stuff, so that all ties into it. But again, because of the stuff that you've done and these other influencers that have been putting out, I mean, it's really there. You know, Pokemon's looking at this, Nintendo's looking at this and saying, what can we do? What can we do to keep this ramping up? I mean, that movie came out a few years ago, which was big, and I'm sure there's going to be more of those. And but yeah, there's definitely an effect, a definite cause and effect from the stuff you're doing and some of these other people are doing that's just keeping this thing alive, which it is. Again, as funny as it sounds to people that don't understand it, I know exactly what you're talking about as somebody who collected them as a kid and felt that same. I'm the same way with things like that. I really want, going back to that psychology of it, like there's something about the excitement and the thrill and then the protectiveness and the value and like this whole thing but then to be able to share that with my kids and go get a pack with them and get them to fill their book up and, oh man, you pulled that one. That's amazing. It's so fun. It's such a fun thing to be able to share with your kids, and then even to watch the show with them and everything. It's
and especially that it was something that you enjoyed long before they arrived on the scene. That's
long before.
It really is special.
Yeah. One of the things that I love most about this whole thing and what that I want to touch on is you've taken this fame that's come from Pokemon and you've created these incredible relationships. We talked about Logan Paul. We mentioned Stephen Aoki, but you have a really close relationship with him, and you're leveraging the audience. Obviously, as I think I looked, he has 8 million followers on Instagram or something, and he's a world renowned DJ and stuff, but you've got these followings and this hobby, but you're leveraging this audience to do good. And a lot of the work that you're doing for your wife's Autism Instruct, which is this organization. I didn't realize that you had an autistic daughter, which now that makes a lot more sense, right? So these causes, these charitable causes, but then also Steve Aoki's got a bunch of different organizations and things that he supports and helps donate to, which are all about mental well-being and brain health and all of this. So talk to me about that and the kind of some of the success stories you've seen and maybe some of the hope that you've drawn from being able to take this hobby, this, that some people just see as a child's game, but this thing that it truly is its own community and culture, and then being able to leverage that for, providing hope to some of these charities and what you've been able to do there.
Right. Well, when our daughter was diagnosed with autism, I thought it was a death penalty. I mean, that's how I didn't know anything about autism. Yeah. Right. And my wife was going to University of Nevada, Las Vegas for hotel administration. Okay. And then when our little girl came along, I wasn't educated on what it meant. And so when I heard autism, I thought, oh, that's got to be really bad, right? I mean, I didn't know. Yeah. And which it turns out it's not. It's not what I, thought. And my wife.
There's a whole spectrum, right? It ranges from very mild that you would never know to obvious, very apparent that there's a problem.
Especially with girls, because apparently it, exhibits itself differently through females than males. And many females aren't even diagnosed until adulthood. So, which is too bad, because you can get help, when you're younger, that will limit the effect on their life. And so my wife immediately, she had just gotten she has like 3 bachelor's degrees from Vietnam and here. And she immediately changed her goal, to special education autism, and which she's just completing her master's now this month. In that, that's impressive. And mainly because of the little girl, because suddenly she found something she could be passionate about, which maybe that's a good tip for all of us, that I wish my parents had pushed me into journalism and not into the sciences. I learned a lesson from that. I definitely learned a lesson from that. Because as long as it's something, if you're passionate about the sciences, then perfect. And that if you're passionate about writing or about, journalism, go into that. Do what makes you happy, what you love.
There's those certain things that you do, and I've learned this over time, but I had the same experience where I was going to school just to get a job, and then I realized a couple years in, like, I don't like this at all, and I ended up coming to the conclusion on my own through the ways that I came to the conclusion, but was I needed to study something I was passionate about, and the job would work itself out. That would figure itself out, but I needed to, and then I've had these experiences. And this is one of them, honestly, these full circle moments where you just feel like you're in the right place at the right time, doing the thing that is ingrained, that's in your blood, that's just part of what you are meant to do. It's just part of it. It's part of your core strengths and the natural gifts and abilities and talents you have. And there's plenty of people that natural strength and ability, whatever, is biochemistry, right? Yes. There's plenty of those people, and that's amazing. That's the best. Yes. But there's also people that just doesn't add up. So I'm with you 100%.
If your viewers don't hear anything else tonight, with what we're talking about, have them replay what you just said, because I can talk, I'm 66. I've been through, I've seen those things. And what you are saying is really all that should matter. Do what you're passionate about, do what you enjoy. When you're 66, you're going to be grateful that you did. Somebody listening to you tonight, when they hear that, if they can take that to heart and really do it, they're going to look back on tonight and it's going to mean something to them. So, you guys, if you hear nothing else, just replay that.
And also that if you collect your Pokemon cards today, you can sell them for $10 million in 30 years.
Yeah. Well, maybe I could tell you a touch about that. I have storage lockers full of failures.
Yeah.
I've been a collector my whole life. I've collected everything just because of the love of collecting, completing sets, just because I love doing it. I love the search and the
You're a purist. I love that about, and you resonate that. I can really watching everything I've said and talking to you, getting to know you in this, conversation. It's just it's a love of the game, right? It's
the love of the game. Yes. Yeah. And it doesn't matter that 90% of my stuff, you could just throw it in the trash tomorrow and nothing would be lost. Right.
Yeah. Besides
my memories and the fun of doing it. And in other words, a lot of this collecting stuff is luck. Some things ended up being worth money. In Pokemon, a lot of money. But the majority of things are worth absolutely nothing. So I always like to say I can't take any credit. I'm no smarter than anybody else. But I collected enough things where it figured a couple things would do well, right?
Yeah.
So, and of course, Pokemon did extremely well. And now it's the most good that the Pokemon's done is it's made it possible for me to be a little bit influential, in our charity, in the Aoki Foundation, and which maybe you'll mention later, we'll talk about later. But that was all a miracle the way that came together too. And now, honestly, besides Tuan and the little girl, all I care about is the charity. It's taken over my love for Pokemon and everything else. It's what can I do, I had a really bad experience of a lady who couldn't get help for her son. And that's what, when somebody I'd known for a couple of years and the therapies were really helping him. And that should never be the case. And so that made me ask myself, what can I do? Well, it turns out the little bit of popularity I got and some of the money that I can, let go of, I'm going to put it towards, Steve and I are going to put it towards brain health and autism. So
my question is, do you use that in your conversation with Tuan? Let's say you identify the third Beckett 10 and you need to pull out $850,000 to acquire this card. What is the conversation like with Tuan?
Yeah.
Does she share the same passion where you could explain this is going to bring a lot of attention again in the current situation to the charities and continue to bring attention to autism and neurological disorders?
Right. Yeah. Well, she obviously, the charity side of it, she's all in on also. As far as me, buying stuff and spending money, she's, she might look at me sideways a couple times. If that third Beckett's 10 showed up, I would find some way to get it, for sure.
And the background on that, if anybody listening, is that there's 3 that are known in the world, but only 2 of them are out. There's a third one somewhere that nobody knows who has it or where it is. Right?
I had the only one for years,
and they showed that one on Pawn Stars, and then another one came out.
Then I got that one, so I got that one. So I had the only 2 in existence for a long time, And now a third one has come out and nobody can find it.
And this is a first edition Charizard from the original 99 packs that came out. And it's a perfect 10 as far as Beckett. And Beckett grades things even harder than PSA does.
For the Beckett 10, yes.
For Beckett 10. And so there's just nothing, it couldn't be a better card as far as this goes. And so there's a third one out there, and you don't know who has it, right? It's just somebody got it graded and they got it back, and they're sitting somewhere.
And I have a feeling it was if you check the serial numbers, they grade in order, right?
Yeah.
Numerical order. If you check the numbers before it and you check the serial numbers after it, it's a complete hollow set for, Alakazam, Blastoise, Chansey, Charizard, Clefairy, Gyarados, on and on. So that makes it appear that somebody had a binder set. They pulled the cards out, when Pokemon got so, popular, and sent them in to be graded, and got lucky that the Charizard somehow got a 10. The other cards, you can tell what the grades were, and they were pretty much all 6s and 7s.
Wow.
A few 8s, but the Charizard hit a 10. So that kind of tells me that person is just, some average person, not in the hobby, that collected as a kid and sent them in to be graded. They're probably back in the closet.
Well, Gary, we've got something to show you. No,
yes.
I'm just kidding. Could you imagine? Could you imagine if that was the whole hype and I just pulled up the that was the whole reason we had you here, Gary. We've got it, and we want to do some business.
I'd be on a plane tonight to try to talk you into.
Oh man, that was
one thing that you mentioned before, about Logan. When Logan bought that card, the highest price paid for one of those cards at the time was $130,000. So when he offered me $150,000, it wasn't the money, but that was a new world record, for a card.
And then Logic, the rapper, not too long after, bought one for $230,000 or $220,000 or something, right?
And now you can easily get $350,000, and I sold it for $150,000. Well, that makes it sound like I lost $200,000, right?
Yeah,
but I have 6 more.
Yeah,
those 6 were all worth about $130,000. And now all 6 are worth about $350,000. So by selling him that one card, it actually increased, not that I'm selling them because I'm not, but it increased the value of the ones I had left.
Who else have you had?
When people say, oh, Gary, you must feel terrible. Logan, you can get $350,000 today. And I just say, yeah, I guess so. But I know my other ones, the prices went up so high that I made a lot of money by doing that if I would sell.
For sure. If it was your only one and it was the only thing you had going for you, maybe. But the fact that you've got, and again, you also have to, and again, on a very much smaller scale with the cards that I sold, it also has a lot to do with the moment, right? And like having the right buyer at the right time in the right place. The fact that he flew in, he's got a briefcase. It's not like, I'll send you the money, I'll wire it. It's like, I've got $150,000 cash. Yeah. It's a world record. I need this card. I want it. And like you said, he's a gentleman. He's a stand-up guy. There's an emotion involved. It's like, all right, let's do the deal. And again, I know so many people are probably listening to this thinking, did he just say $150,000 cash for a Pokemon card? Yes, that is exactly what we.
Something else. When he was here, he actually wanted to get one of my Beckett 10s.
Yeah, and that wasn't happening.
And he said, and I think it showed up on camera. That he said, I'm not even going to ask you,
Yeah. Well, he took your son, Devin, right into the other room. And he just said, like, is it even worth it? I don't want to be disrespectful. I don't want to. And
you see, how nice is that?
Yeah.
Right.
No,
he actually didn't want to continue it, even though it was big for his channel and for the thing he was, his video. He didn't want to be disrespectful or insult me. And so knowing that Devin would know me very well, he talked to Devin, before he would even continue with an offer.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's awfully nice, because had Devin said, well, no, you'd be putting him on the spot or something. And
you could tell that's what he did, again, because I think talking with you understand the kindness and also just the purity and like the love of it. And it's like, I don't want to, I do agree. I think the way that he approached that was perfect to say, I don't want to put him on the spot with all these cameras in his face.
Right.
For these things that he holds so near and dear, I totally, I get that. So,
and also I want to tell you one more thing.
Yeah,
my greatest love is for the shadowless cards.
Yeah.
Had he tried to get one of those, I would not have done it in that. So although now I have what I want to sell because I have 13, and that's kind of the 13th one I got is kind of an unlucky number. So I might sell one now.
We got to figure out a way to get that sold in some charitable way to get this
Breaking news on the Hope podcast.
Yeah. Well, we have some good things coming up for the charity, which everybody will see. Yeah.
The shadowless, again, if anybody cares out there, it's because again, I actually, that's one of the things I hadn't heard of. And so when I started doing the research on the card, I mean, I had heard of it, but I didn't know what it meant. But basically some of is it the earlier cards that there's a shadow and it's just mainly a hue of red on especially the Charizards that's kind of along the edge. And some cards have it and some cards don't, this extra coloring. And the ones that don't are considered shadowless, which are more rare and up the value. It's all about supply and demand. The rarer the card and the less of them there are.
Well, quickly, what they are is for the first print run for the English release, the base set.
Yeah.
The first print run had no shadow. The first edition cards didn't have a shadow. They just stamped a black stamp on those sheets for each one of the cards. And then when they finished the first edition run, the new artwork wasn't finished for the unlimited run. So they used the balance of the sheets to just cut them up and stick them in packs. So they didn't have a stamp, but they're identical to the first edition cards without the stamp. So
I was really hoping mine was shadowless, because in that collection I also had a really good condition Charizard base set that I gave with the Blastoise and the Venusaur. I was really hoping that some of them were shadowless, but they weren't.
Did you grade those three?
No, I didn't. No. And again, it's the same thing. Yours numbers are a lot bigger. Mine's still the same. It's like, should I have waited and held on to those and graded them and then done it? But again, it just came down to a buyer's got cash right now. And I was, trust me, I had to package them up and not look at it once they were in the box, because there is a sentimentality to it. That's like, I have had these since I was 12 years old or whatever.
Right.
And, it was just like, I was joking with my wife, but like, here, take the box, walk away. Like, I don't want to see this. Like, I'm going to ship it off. And then he got them and he sent me a picture with all of them, and I was like, okay, they found a good home. He's going to, flip them at some point. And he doesn't know the first thing about Pokemon. He just is a collector and wanted to get in on it because he knows some guys that are, but, so tell us all about the charitable work. So of this, like I said, there's so much good coming from it other than just a lot of fun and a cool hobby, and all these celebrity connections and all this amazing stuff that you've done, at this stage. But tell us all about the charity and the work that you do with Steve Aoki. Yeah.
Well, with the way that started was, I told you about that situation where one of the ladies, little boy, Miss Hernandez, her son could get no more treatments because of the insurance.
And how did you get involved with her? How did you hear about this?
Just in waiting rooms, just by going to to therapy sessions, sitting there with the other parents and in that, just got to know her that way. And then when she stopped showing up, I finally asked after a couple of weeks, I said, what happened to Ms. Hernandez? And that's when they explained that the insurance lapsed because of a COVID layoff or something like that. And anyway, when that happened, that's when I decided that I had to do something. And Steve was a friend, but we weren't involved in that way.
And did you really just meet him because you live close by? You just knew him?
Yeah. Just as, in fact, I think if I remember right, quite a while back, I think Logan introduced him to me.
Oh, really?
Because I knew Logan first. Yeah. But then with Steve, he's, I told him what my goal was, and that my goal was to, go ahead and get a charity started, see what it would take to do that. And it turns out you have to jump through a bunch of hoops to get something like that going.
Yeah.
And maybe rightfully so, so it's done, properly, and you don't have scammers and things like that. And Steve said, well, listen, I'll tell you what, you can come in and operate under my charity. He said, you're completely on your own. You do your own thing. But this way the infrastructure's in place and you don't have to, do all the other stuff, and you get started today. And I said, well, that's very nice. That is very nice. I said, and then he sent his charity, the lady who runs his charity, who lives in Arizona. He flew her down to meet with me and to figure out what we could do. And then in subsequent conversations with him, he started to get interested in what I was doing. And now suddenly he wanted to be involved with me on the autism side, and vice versa. I started seeing stuff that he was doing and checking out the videos on brain health. And anyway, we just teamed up then, and thank God for him, because already a lot of good has been done. And this year, you're going to see some unbelievable stuff is going to be done through our charity. And so that's pretty much how that got started.
So what can we keep an eye out for? What are some of the things that are coming up and some of the events you guys are doing? And
we have an event coming up. I believe 2 of them in March. One in March is I'm going to be doing an appearance in Dallas. I'm in Las Vegas at the PokeCon Texas convention or show, and Leon Hart is going to be there. He's going to be coming to see me, and a number of other people. And I'm going to have a charity poster that people are going to donate through. So anyway, that's one event. Another one is something through the Whatnot app that John Pokemon Radar is doing, where they're going to be opening up a base Japanese box, 60 packs, selling the packs, donating the money to charity. That's going to be live streamed on the Whatnot app in March, maybe 23rd. And then there's going to be a nice one, a first edition base box opened for the Aoki Foundation. That's being donated in total. All of it is being donated, the box, which is about $500,000. And that we're going to be doing, a live stream, and along with the fellow who's donating that box. You see what Logan is doing. Obviously there's some profit involved, and God love him, I'm glad. For this, there's no money in it for anybody except the charity. And the guy who's donating it is, he's like an angel from heaven to us. And so
that's incredible.
Yeah.
Because that's the same box that they're paying $500,000 for, or whatever, right?
Yeah, he actually paid $378,000 for it,
and he's going to donate it.
Does it happen to be Chris Camillo from Dumb Money?
How do you know that?
I'm a Dumb Money fan. Big fan of Chris. I sent him pictures of Corey's German Charizard, and he responded as well. So kudos to both of you.
Yeah. Chris is. I'm going to be meeting with him when I'm in Texas for PokeCon on March 13th and 14th. We'll be getting together. He's going to present me with the box for the charity, and then he'll be coming out. We'll be doing a whole day event with in the fall with content creators in the financial field, people like Graham Stephan and those types. And then on that same day after the event, we'll be opening that box up for charity. And
Curtis, we might need to take a birthday trip for you to Dallas in March.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm in. Yeah,
that would be fun. Yeah. We maybe should show up. That'd be amazing.
Yes. There's no more vendor tables, but those got sold out a month in advance, which is pretty amazing.
Good.
And it's all because I'm appearing. Isn't that something?
That is something. It is.
No, not really.
Yeah, we're not even going to buy tickets. We're just going to show up and say, we know the Pokemon King. And
right.
And we won't get let in. So we better buy tickets.
Yeah.
So it's
actually, I have VIP badges. So you let me know.
Oh, I will definitely let you know. You might have shouldn't have said that, because we might be. Curtis's birthday is on the 17th. The reason I know that is because it's the same day as my wife.
Oh, same day as my cousin. I'm on the 18th.
Oh, cool. Well, yeah, maybe we'll show up. I'll have to let you know. That'd be fun. That'd be a fun little trip.
The 17th, isn't that St. Patrick's Day, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is.
There you go.
Lucky. Yeah, you want him there when you're opening those packs.
Right. Yes. There you go.
That's right.
There you go. But yeah, that will be coming in the fall, and that's going to be a major thing for the charity.
Cool.
And and I'll tell you something. I can hardly get through an interview without expressing my love for Steve Aoki. What he does that nobody has any clue about, that nobody knows about him. This is one of the kindest, most gentle-hearted people I have met in my 66 years. What he's doing, what he's doing for the charity, how he's going out of his way. And some things aren't easy for him to do, because of who he is. And yet he does it. He's been here at the house numerous times. He's basically the godfather of our little daughter, of Akara. I was with him over at his mom's celebrating Chinese New Year last week, and we call each other TB, twin brothers, and I could not feel stronger about another person than I do about him and the good that he's doing. And he just deserves everything I could think of.
That's awesome. That is so cool. That. And again, that's not something that your average fan or music fan or, or celebrity fan or whatever would know. I love that context. I really appreciate you responding to that Instagram message about that first edition German Charizard. And as I started doing a little more research, that's why I reached out. As I started looking into it, I could feel and I could sense your authenticity and your, like I said before, your love of the game, your purity, your and then I watched, when I reached out to you about the podcast, I watched the episode. I can't remember what the podcast is called, but they came to Steve Aoki's house and did it with you, and you showed them all of the breakfast.
Graham Stephan.
Yeah,
Graham
Stephan. There you go.
Yes.
And so I watched that, and I was just like, man, this guy's awesome. Anyway, so I couldn't be more thrilled that we had a chance to talk to you and get to know you a little bit. And your story is one of like, it's really easy to look and say, oh, this guy's the Pokemon King. He's got a bunch of Pokemon cards. But when you really look at it, and I feel like we've got this excellent depth to you, and I'm excited for people to hear this, of just like growing up in Hollywood and then the trials and tribulations that you face and really some of these difficulties that you've had. But then how you've been able to watch in hindsight say, you know what, each one of these things happened for a reason. And I had to look outside myself to find hope and faith in something, and, all these different twists and turns. And now to get to this point where so many people really would say, this is the time to cash out. I've got the whole thing of the Logan. Thank goodness for Logan Paul for making these things worth what they are. I know all these people. I could sell every single one of these right now, and I would never have to worry about anything again. But the fact that you're now leveraging the fame that's come with it and the notoriety in order to push these charities and fortify these relationships and partnerships with guys like Steve Aoki, and it's so inspiring and impressive, and I so impressed and so grateful.
Well, it's great. It's great for us to have hope, and for what you're trying to spread on your channel, is commendable. But basically what we're doing is, we're trying to offer up some of that hope for these kids that don't, that need it the most. So, we're giving them hope, and we're giving their parents and families, hope for a better outcome, for them. And I don't know if you've heard, but the connection with Pokemon is the Pokemon founder is autistic. That's Satoshi Tajiri.
I did not know that.
He was a little autistic boy in Japan who had a fascination. Autistic people have a focus on things. and his focus was on bugs and insects and little things like that, and that he was fascinated with them. Well, he ended up growing up as an autistic boy, growing up and creating the #1 media franchise in the history of the world.
Bigger than Harry Potter and Star Wars and Marvel and everything combined.
Bigger than all of them. And this was a little autistic boy. So, giving, sharing the word, like that, not only the help that we can help bring those kids, but the hope that we can give their parents. Because the more hope you give the parents, the better the outcome for the child. I told you when Akara was diagnosed, I thought, oh my God, she's dead. I didn't know, right? I had no hope at all in that because I didn't understand it. And then suddenly the hope came the more I understood it. And now the connection to Pokemon with autism, there would be no Pokemon without autism, period. It wouldn't be here. And so, but the hope that you're sharing and the hope that I'm striving for is not just for those kids, but for the parents, because the more hope they have, the better they're going to know how to treat their children and what to do. And those 12 sessions a week, like what I have to do, they're all worth it. And in fact, they're not only all worth it, they're a blessing. I sit there in the waiting room or in the car, just thankful that I can be there and that she's inside there, getting help. Well, that's the hope. It gives me hope, and I feel that way. So, yeah, so I respect what you're doing too. And,
well, thanks so much. I appreciate that. I mean, that means a lot. So if somebody's listening to this right now and says, and feels so inclined to say, hey, I'd love to, whatever these guys are doing, I'd love to donate $1 or $10 or $1,000, whatever it might be, where would they go right now to be able to contribute and help out? aokifoundation.org/Pokemon. Okay. Awesome.
So aokifoundation.org/Pokemon.
AOKI. Yep. Awesome.
And what they can do, not only, and with a $10 donation under any of our names, all of us that are on this poster have a link.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. With all the top people, Logan is on there. Steve Aoki autographed every one of them here. And that it gives every name that they donate $10 under or more, gives them a chance to win one of those posters. And there's only going to be 18 of these posters released worldwide. So it's actually an incredibly valuable piece too. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So that's one of our events.
So they go to aokifoundation.org/Pokemon. They donate, they contribute, they donate, then their name gets put into a raffle of sorts to win one of these 18.
Yeah, like they'll see Logan's name on there. They can donate under his name, under Steve's name, under my name, under Twan's name, under Scott Pratt. Okay. Everybody on the poster has there. And I'll give your watchers a tip. Some of the guys aren't quite as popular and they don't have a whole lot, you have a good chance, going through some of them and, having less competition than you would through Steve or whatever. So, that would really help. And I would love to have one of your watchers win one of these posters.
Yeah, that would be cool. If you're listening and you enter into this and you win, when are they drawing out for that?
That'll probably be mid-April.
Okay.
Probably be mid-April. And I don't know if I mentioned, but it's autographed by all of us. There's 17 autographs on there.
That's so cool. That would be the ultimate. That would be an incredible thing for any Pokemon fan to get and put up on the wall. That's amazing.
Pokerev, Leon Hart, Super Duper Danny, Real Breaking Nate, all the big boys.
Seriously, it is a pleasure to meet you. I'm glad that we're connected. Your story is incredible. It's going to be inspiring for a lot of people to listen to this. And it's been inspiring for me and Curtis, if nothing else, but I know a lot of other people are going to jump in and hear this. And I'm excited for your audience to hear this. And a lot of these people in the Pokemon world that probably haven't heard some of this backstory, to kind of hear where you're coming from stuff. So thank you so much, Gary. We appreciate your time. Thanks for being on.
Thank you. And thank you too, Curtis.
Thank you, Gary. Sure appreciate it.
All right.
Hello, it's Corey here, and I just want to thank you so much for listening into the Hope Strategy Podcast. I hope you're enjoying it as much as we are enjoying having these amazing conversations with these incredible individuals talking about hope. We'd love it if you wouldn't mind liking, subscribing, and leaving us a review on iTunes or Spotify or anywhere that you listen to your podcasts, and share it with anybody you feel that can benefit from these messages of hope. Thank you so much for listening to the Hope Strategy Podcast.